Alright, this is a different day, different sunscreen. I'm feeling it, I like it. It's giving dewy, it's giving glow. Okay, it feels nice. It almost has like a little orange scent. I'm liking it. Now the price I don't like, but you'll see that eventually in that video. And I wish the neighbor's dog would shut up. I'm trying to film a video being cute. Damn. Can't have no tea. But this tea good. Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess and this is Nigel. And welcome to another installment of Book CommuniTEA, where I try to keep you abreast of the goings on and the shenanigans in the bookish community. So, lots have been going on. So we're gonna see, will this video be a full feature-length film? Who knows? I guess you know if you're looking at this video now because you can see the full length of time, but I apologize if you can hear my fan. I have the air on and the fan, but like I've been having a lot of like body image issues lately, so I put on a shirt. I didn't want my arms to be shown, and so now I'm very warm in the sweatshirt, and I had a mug of hot ass tea, so I'm like, I'm burning up right now and I'm trying to cool down. All right, looks like we're settled in. Someone's gonna take a nap, so if you hear snoring, you know who it is. And we're gonna start with The Ripped Bodice. So The Ripped Bodice is the only exclusively romance bookstore on the West Coast. So two sisters run the store. It says Leah and Bea Koch. And it says The Ripped Bodice features a vast and diverse selection of romance fiction. I've definitely heard of The Ripped Bodice in passing over the last few years. And so for the last several years, they have made a diversity report in romance, so romance and publishing. And it's called the State of Racial Diversity and Romance Publishing Report. And so yeah, it says 2016 was the first one, and they have their latest one from 2020, which was recently published at the beginning of March. So they have the links to the report from 2016 to 2020, and then under our frequently asked questions, such as, what is the study? So it tracks the publication of books written by authors who are by POC in the traditional romance publishing genre. So this is traditional publishing, not indie. It says, how did we collect this data? They identify and contact leading romance publishers to ask whether they are willing to participate. Participation by publishers consists of providing a list of titles published in the calendar year. Publisher participation is technically unnecessary to the completion of the report. However, it saves us a lot of time and labor, which is why we ask the publishers engage with us. So is racial diversity the only kind that matters? They said no. Why only race? They said while many groups are still woefully underrepresented in the romance genre, including people with disabilities, marginalized religious groups, and members of the LGBTQ community, racial diversity is a specific area we choose to focus on. And the truth is that racial discrimination and white supremacy is still dominant, even when in concert or combination with other marginalized identities. So how do they determine if someone is BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, person of color? And so they said, we researched to discern to the best of our ability members of different racial groups through information like photographs, social media, interviews, biographies, and from author websites. Many authors who are BIPOC indicate that they identify as such in their bios or on their social media pages. All information we use is public. This is not a foolproof system, and we make every effort to be extremely open about that. Doesn't this mean there's room for error? Absolutely. Some authors do not choose to publicly share information, and they respect that choice, but it means there is room for error. So a book must have the BISAC code of romance. BISAC codes are a system used by booksellers and librarians to identify books by subject matter and genre. It's not a perfect system, but we do think it's the most accurate metric to use and one with some amount of consistency. Publishers who submit their title data are aware of how we determine what is included. We double check all data that is submitted by publishers to ensure that it includes the correct criteria. Why do you separate some imprints and not others? Publishing can be a complex maze, and that some of the big publishing houses have different lines called imprints devoted to different subject matter or types of books. We separate out imprints if different people, editors, publishing executives, etc., make the decisions about what gets published. For example, the editorial team for Avon is totally separate from the editorial team making the decisions for Carina, but both imprints are owned by HarperCollins. Contrast that with Kensington, where the same staff works on all romance books, even if the books are ultimately published under different imprints. And then why don't you release the raw data? They think it's a dangerous idea because it would be publishing a list of authors who are by POC for people to access on the internet. And you know the internet is a wild place. And why not examine the content of the books? And they said diverse characters and settings are extremely important. We learn about our world and each other through media we consume. However, the fictional characters in these books aren't being negatively impacted by discrimination in real life. Real people who write the books are, as are the real readers who purchase them. We need creators from marginalized identities getting paid to tell their own stories in publishing. So that is essentially what goes into how they decide what fits into this report. And for the year 2020, let's give it a gander, shall we? Okay, so this is the state of racial diversity in romance publishing for 2020. So yes, this was the 5th year that they did the report. After 5 years of collecting data, we have an increasingly clear picture of who publishers are publishing each year. The numbers are frequently erratic. While we may see some improvements in one publisher's numbers from one year to the next, there is a lack of consistent year-over-year improvement across the industry to diversify the authors they publish. 2020 brought a new round of statements from publishers affirming their commitment to anti-racism and dismantling white supremacist structures within publishing, but we continue to see and be troubled by the discrepancy between corporate statements and the number of authors of color who are published and therefore compensated by these companies. And so for 2020, they list their bestsellers. I'm assuming this is bestsellers at their store because it says Ripped Bodice Bestsellers 2020. So we start with what percentage of books published in 2020 were written by POC. So for Avon Romance, we have 10.9%, Berkeley 14%, Bethany House 0%, Bold Strokes Books 1.9%, Carina Press 37%, Entangled Publishing 7%, Forever Romance 11.5%, Harlequin Series 6%, HQN, is that just Harlequin? 5%, Kensington 44.8%, Mira Books 3.6%, Montlake Romance 1.7%, Simon & Schuster, which includes Pocket and Gallery 2.5%, Source Books 9.7%, St. Martin's Press, which includes Griffin, SMP, and Swerve 29%, and Tool Publishing 6%. So they have the different icons. If there was a heart, the data was provided by the publisher. The little flower thingy, they declined to participate. And then they have a little arrow thing, ignored all communication attempts, which is very interesting. Who ignored? Simon & Schuster ignored. That's very rude. All right. So then they go down to individual publisher data over the last 5 years of their report. So they start with Avon, and so it has increased from 2.8% in 2016 to 10.9%. That's positive. Then Berkeley has increased, although they went down a little bit. 2019, they made it all the way up to 17%. And they started at 3.9%, but for 2020, they went down to 14%. Bethany House has been solid and consistent at 0% of books written by POC in the last 5 years. We love consistency. Go ahead, girl, give us nothing. And Bold Strokes started out in 2016 at 7%, and now they have dipped down to 1.9%. Very interesting. Wow. Carina Press has started out at 5.4% in 2016 and has jumped to 37% in 2020, which is incredible. Entangled has been a little bumpy. They started at 8.9, they went down to 4, they got up to 14, but they're down to 7 in 2020. Let's see, Forever Press also started out a little stronger, 17.5% in 2016, but now they're down to 11.5 in 2020. Harlequin has been relatively consistent. They started at 8.3% in 2016, and now they're at 6% in 2020. HQN is owned by HarperCollins. They started at 0, but they have moved up to 5%, progress, hello. And then Kensington is popping. They started at 12.7% in 2016, and they're at 44.8% in 2020. Amen. God bless. And then we have St. Martin's Press, which is owned by Macmillan, and they started at 6% in 2016. They are up to 29% in 2020. And then we have Mira, which is also owned by HarperCollins. They started at 4.4%. They got up to about 7.7 in 2017, but right now in 2020, or last year, they are at only 4.3%. Then Montlake has been low, 1.7% in 2020, which is down actually from their 1.9 in 2016. Simon & Schuster started at 5.5. They got up to 12.2, but they're down to a measly 2.5 in 2020. Sourcebooks is at a 9.7 in 2020, which is up from 2.9 in 2016. And then Tool started at 0, and they're up to 6%. So some progress is better than none. So for every 100 books that were published by the leading romance publishers in 2020, 12 were written by BIPOC. It is worth noting that if one were to exclude the books published by Kensington from this calculation, the industry average would be 8.3, which is the same as the total industry number in 2019, because Kensington has got it popping. And so this is a nice graph here, a nice little circle-y thingy that gives you all of the romance books counted in 5 years, and then it gives you that overall percentage in the last 5 years. That 8.1% were written by BIPOC authors. 91.9% were written by white authors. So that is the entirety of their report, which gives you a decent overview of publishing. Again, traditional publishing, not indie, because a lot of BIPOC authors publish indie books, but this is traditional publishing. So I think that graph is just, I love me a graph. I love a visual. I mean, we're not surprised though. We're not surprised. So then there was a lot of commentary on Twitter about the report, because people have, since it's been coming out for 5 years and it's relatively the same, they ask the publishers to participate. Whoever participates gives them their information. They obviously explained how they collect that information, and then they compile this report, which is helpful to see how publishing, especially for romance, to see how romance publishing, to see how traditional romance publishers are or are not progressing. And it's obvious that some imprints have really impressed. Some have held steady at, we don't do diversity here, sweetie. And other ones have been a little bumpy. So it is helpful. It's very easy to read. It is very accessible. Obviously, you can just access it on their website. They tweeted about it and put a nice little graph. I love an infographic. So every year for the last 5 years, they've done this, and usually people are like, oh, this is great. Thank you for letting us know this information. We can still see how there is not enough diversity in traditional publishing for romance. However, people were upset because some people's concern about the report, one person's tweets were, I know the diversity in publishing report came out yesterday, but I'm increasingly skeptical of 1, how this data is compiled, especially when the publishers don't cooperate. 2, how many of these BIPOC authors are writing characters of color. 3, if white folks of different ethnicities are included. Let's see, they've been collecting this data since 2016, and while some numbers have improved steadily, Kensington, most of them have stayed about the same or published less titles by BIPOC. It's very fucking clear that publishers won't be bullied or shamed into doing better, so what's next? Because this is just information, and honestly, how useful is this information? It just highlights what has been true all along. We need more BIPOC in decision-making positions. That's the only way there will be any movement towards true diversity. Having said that, this ain't my ministry. I can't care what traditional publishing does anymore. The divide between what trad is acquiring and publishing and what self-pub romance authors are publishing is an ever-widening chasm. I'm just tweeting though, which is very fair. It's like you do keep seeing the information, but nothing's changing. So does it serve a purpose? And someone tweeted that and said, what I find most problematic about the Rip Bodice's State of Racial Diversity in Romance Publishing report is how it's branded, and then subsequently how it's cited to prove things it's not meant or equipped to capture. There are many excellent points made in Tasha, Nick, and Ari's threads. The Rip Bodice can choose to continue what they're doing, of course, but it's a limited study that looks at big traditional publishers, not all of romance publishing, e.g., completely ignores indie. And the title implies romance publishing's diversity is solely based on the racial identity of authors published, which disregards who is in power, compensation inequalities, the content of what's published, and data reporting creates a flat racial binary that's problematic. And it's fine to limit scope, but not to overstate what is being measured, especially when that leads to journalists and romance industry insiders citing it as a useful barometer for an entire industry. That's what I think we can and should put forth effort into changing. But essentially, those are the biggest criticisms I saw. Like, okay, this report exists, but what can we do to actually change things in the publishing industry? And yes, it shows how many, or really how little, BIPOC authors are being published, but it doesn't go deeper than that. And they do mention that in the frequently asked questions, to be fair. They said that they were only, sticking with race as something, and they told you how they came about deciding what racial group someone belonged to, but that it doesn't talk about the characters, which are also important in the story. It also doesn't talk about the publishing companies themselves and looking at how they're staffed. And pretty much, if you did it, you probably would look and see that the staffing is predominantly white. And so it's going to be harder to move forward and see these numbers steadily rise across all traditional publishers if we're sticking with traditional. And if there aren't more people of color working in these organizations, it's just as simple as that. And it's not even just, so you need the authors, but you also need agents and editors and VPs and all the different branches of whatever works in these corporations. You need diversity in people. You need people who are disabled and who have different, and you need neurodiversity. Look, I'm using my words. And yeah, you need racial and ethnic and religious and gender. You need a lot to accurately reflect the population. You need that in the company. And that's very hard to achieve because, all the isms, okay? So essentially there was a lot of critique on Twitter. Like I said, I'll link the threads, but two of the people who were going back and forth and really listing out the issues they have this report and have had with this report, they wrote a response to the Rip Bodice's report. So their names are Ari and Nick. Let's see. Ari and Nick wrote a critique, which of course will be linked down below, and it says the Rip Bodice's diversity report, a critique. It is very long, so I'm just going to try to give you a general summation, and you can read the entire thing if you would like. And you can read the entire thing if you would like. So in summary, they start with, we offer a critique of the Rip Bodice's State of Racial Diversity and Romance publishing report. With its lack of transparency, unethical, and unclear methodology, the diversity report leaves us with more questions than with answers. Though well-meaning, a study like this does a disservice to both publishers and BIPOC authors, while also setting a dangerous precedent of allowing poor ethics and poor data practices to run rampant in the romance community. In the last couple of years, we have seen the damaging effects of allowing misinformation in the media. So why are we still uncritically accepting a report that could be spreading misinformation to be published year after year? We urge the Rip Bodice to do better and to carefully consider a few of the alternatives presented in this article. So they start out talking about the Rip Bodice and who they are. The intent of the report is admirable. However, the study meant to highlight the self-evident whiteness of romance publishing is riddled with flaws from the study design to the ethics and to the reporting phase. If we want to understand and make impactful commentaries that can sway the state of publishing, it is essential that we responsibly and ethically collect, analyze, and report diversity data to the best of our abilities in order to back our statements with the least biased evidence. So they go into ethical violations, and they talk about them identifying how they're identifying authors of color and how they find that unethical and how they determine a person's race. Then they talk about informed consent. Nowhere in any of the studies produced within the last year does it state that the surveys were distributed to authors to have them define their racial identity. The Ripped Bodice made these calls themselves. It wouldn't be a far-fetched idea to assume the Ripped Bodice has their own form of a race database, a la Ancestry.com for authors, because if we refer back to their FAQ page, it states that they run the data themselves. We also have to wonder whether this information is being insecurely stored on personal computers without any encryption. And lastly, while the Rip Bodice says it welcomes corrections of misassigned identity, how are the authors able to report if they are being mislabeled if they are not informed that they were included in this study? Which is You know, that's an excellent question. Transparency, where art thou? So saying transparency is key when running any type of study, as any good study should include a reproducible and replicable methodology section. So they go on to clarify. Now in their frequently asked question, they talked about the categorization that publishers and libraries use to determine if a book is romance. But in this report, they're asking what makes a romance book, because they said it is the reason why Nicholas Sparks is considered a romance author by the general public, even though most of his books don't provide a happily ever after, which is mandatory in order to label a book as romance. We then must ask whether there are any inclusion and exclusion criteria. Are young adult romances included in the study, or strictly adult romances? Are women's fiction included? It's questions like these that highlight the numerous limitations already present right at the start of the study. They said the math ain't mathin', which is one of my new favorite phrases. They even go into, let's take a closer look at possible statistical and data reporting issues. So they're looking at like the graphs that I was mentioning earlier, starting with Avon. Now, one of their complaints was the axes are not labeled and none of the titles are explicit. And so they did say a good graph should not leave it up to the reader to wonder what is being presented, nor should it leave room for misinterpretation. Then they have the infographic that they had, which I thought was really cute. You know, it's really cute. And then this says this also brings up the importance of including total counts, what we call in statistics, when presenting percentages. 10% of 100 books is a very different number than 10% of 10 books. It's possible that some of the percentages for some publishers and imprints are inflated as a result of a relatively lower number of total books published in a given year. That is so true. For example, imprints such as Harlequin or Avon publish more books in a given year than St. Martin's Press. This can make the numbers presented inappropriate and meaningless to compare across the years and across different publishers without seeing the raw totals. So then they said, what's the alternative? They said if external expertise was sought out, then the RIP Bodice would know that ideally a survey is a proper way to conduct a study of this nature. An exemplary diversity report is the Diversity Baseline Survey by Lee and Low Books, which aims to survey publishing houses and review journals to establish data and evidence on the racial, gender, sexual orientation, and ability makeup of the publishing workforce. It should be noted that Lee and Low Books collaborated with a team of experts since the inception of the report in 2015 to handle the surveys and data analysis with proper protocols. They said the Ripped Bodice has been publishing their diversity report for 5 years, but they need changes and updates. And said, yes, racial diversity is important, but shouldn't the goal be to have more inclusive stories all around? While we won't further discuss this, thought it is something to keep in mind when looking at the bigger picture. Said to hell with good intentions. While the intent of the report is important, we cannot dismiss the countless issues found in this study, from the lack of transparency to the unethical and unclear methodology. The RIP Bodice's diversity report leaves us with more questions than answers. A study like this does a disservice to both publishers and BIPOC authors. If these figures can be proven to be unreliable and inaccurate, then the media outlets that have referenced this report as a source would then have to retract their stories. But they presented some really excellent questions and points, and so I thought that was really well done. Again, it'll be linked down below so you can read it. So then, because you know it's never that simple, the Ripped Bodice responded. So they said, what follows is our attempt to respond to the major points of the critique, and as a result of a hard look at our own work and many hours of discussion. They said, we had hoped this could be a dialogue. At the end of their critique, the author stated that it was up to us to decide whether or not the RIP Bodice wants to truly listen. We are certainly intent on continuing to listen to feedback. Unfortunately, after members of the community posted comments disagreeing with some of their assertions, the authors disabled comments on both the essay and one of the author's Twitter threads promoting the essay. We found this disconcerting, but it is not our goal to go round for round sparring on the internet. We want this to move forward, so let's get into the specifics. So they have highlighted some of the quotes from their response, and one is the whiteness of romance is self-evident. And they said, while it might be self-evident to a romance reader seeking diverse authors, narratives, and representation, they said that they started this report 5 years ago because they heard people in the industry were saying diversity wasn't a problem. Racism in publishing may be obvious to some, but it is far from universally acknowledged by all. Responding to the quote, your research methods are unethical and non-consensual. They said consent is important, ethics are important. We believe strongly that this is part of the reason why we do not publish authors' personal identifying information. And in attempting to respond to the allegation that the data collecting methods are non-consensual, we were, to be honest, a little confused. It was unclear whether the critique was alleging that including a book and its author in the report without the permission of the author was non-consensual, or whether the notion of identifying by POC authors was non-consensual. They addressed the you shouldn't guess someone's race based on a photo. While they said, while we do use photos, they're not the only means by how we conduct our research. They do look at people's biographies, interviews, if they have any kind of anything specifying on their author website. So they are saying that they use many different methods, and they did put in there frequently asked questions, that it's not a foolproof system. And they did agree that the report did not establish a clear definition for romance books. So they said that it should have included a definition for the books included in the report. So I guess the frequently asked questions that I read, where they have the what books are tagged as romance by publishing and libraries, I guess they added it after the fact. Addressing the report does not include other forms of diversity. They said this is also true, but that has been their goal from the beginning, to just focus on race. And they said, yep, we agree that we're not transparent with raw data because they don't want to publish it. They said it is true they're not transparent with the raw data because they don't want to put out this list of authors to invite people to attack them, based on their race. So one of the co-authors, Nick, tweeted, so the Rip Bodice released a response, and they are saying we disabled comments to our article and tweets, which we did not. I muted my tweet thread personally because I had a lot of notifications. I can only see one single response that disagreed with our critique, and I'm posting it here in case you can't see it. I got an email notification for it and didn't see if it showed up on the article, but I literally did nothing, and neither did Ari. And also, I just went through the responses to the thread I muted, and I don't see anyone disagreeing with us other than some man talking about books by women. Please point me to the one I miss. A response tweet was, this is so disappointing. A lot of us who don't know much about stats took that report at face value, and you didn't have to stick your neck out to call attention to suspect behavior, but you did. And doing so educated this community. You do important work, and I am grateful. And same, because if you don't know about statistics, which, a lot of people aren't going to, then you're just like, yes, this is a great report. And so they took a lot of time and effort to write up an entire report outlining all of their critiques. So that was a lot of time, and I think that was very useful to a lot of people within the community who aren't familiar with statistics and in doing reports like this. I thought Jack Harbin made some great points in these tweets. He said, you can't disable Twitter comments on a thread that's already been posted. Also kind of sus to bring up false information about disabling comments and then to say, but anyways, not pointing fingers. On top of that, you cannot accurately gather information without informed consent. Is the methodology, well, this author doesn't look white and that's it. No contact, no confirmation. What about white presenting authors, racially ambiguous ones? What good does separating authors by white and non-white do if the point is a conversation about the individual struggles of BIPOC authors in publishing? There needs to be specific numbers based on race, which you can't get just secondhand. I don't face the same struggles in publishing as Black women. Asian women have a different set of hurdles as Indigenous men. These things matter, these conversations matter, and reducing it to just, look, they put out 1.3% more non-white authors this year is lazy. The Ripped Bodice has the attention of major news outlets, television interviews, huge articles. It's time to push for more than just Googling, is author name white, or scrolling through social media. You have the platform and you should strive for more than just this. Well-intended plans only get you so far. If you're comfortable recycling the same data without development for another 5 years, then work. But please don't let others position you as more than what you are, or exaggerate your research and shape it into the source for romance data, which bloop, bloop, bloop. So I only saw great feedback about Nick and Ari's critique, that this is really helpful information. They thought it was really well done, and people who had complaints with the Rip Bodice's report were like, finally, this is what I've been saying. And other people who didn't realize that there were issues with the report were like, wow, I didn't realize this. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. The only two, and of course there are more, but the only two I saw or were sent to me that were less than positive about Nick and Ari's critique were surprisingly two authors. So one was Alyssa Cole, and she tweeted, so now I guess I'll talk about the diversity report. Traditional publishers publish very few authors of color. Diversity report says traditional publishers publish very few authors of color and offers a not 100% accurate accounting of that. Critique is bound to happen when anyone does anything. That's great. But I'm extremely confused by the argument that because the information didn't meet certain statistical criteria, it's invalid and harmful. Publishing paid me, for example, was all anecdotal and yet was useful. It has been an extremely upsetting day seeing people invalidate what we all know is true, seemingly because of data presentation. And I will be clear, I know nothing about data presentation. I only know my lived experience as a Black traditional pubbed author. I'm not at all invalidating the follow-up, but I'm still confused about the amount of energy being spent on this topic when it's right but not rigorous would suffice. And when I say I'm confused, I'm not being cute. It's actually distressing me because I don't understand. I'll add that it's fine if you disagree with me. People in a community don't agree on every issue. These are just my thoughts on what I keep seeing on my timeline. I will add that as someone who's been expending massive energy fighting racism and publishing for almost a decade, it was validating to have even basic flawed data about structural racism in the workplace. In my workplace, I hope a variety of diversity reports result from this conversation. Her last part about I hope a variety of diversity reports result from this conversation, and ideally that would be better. It's always better to have more than just one report. So one part of Alyssa Cole's thread where she said, it's been an extremely upsetting day to see people invalidate what we all know is true, seemingly because of data presentation. And I don't think anyone is invalidating that. They're saying, yes, this is true, but like nothing is happening, nothing is changing. Publishers really aren't doing that much more to change how many BIPOC authors there are. Some of the publishers don't even participate in your research to build this study. So like, what is it doing? So I just found it weird obviously we say this all the time, Black people are not a monolith, but I just found that as a weird take coming from a Black author that she would be upset that people want a better critique of the lack of diversity in romance publishing. Like, no one is saying the ripped bodice is the worst, shut up, stop doing this report, it's not helpful. They're just saying, you've been putting out this report for 5 years, like it, you know, obviously you're gonna start in one place, but you're still really in the same place that you were 5 years ago. Can you make some updates? Can you start adding some more information to the study? Because you're still doing the bare minimum. And obviously they have said that for their study, it is very narrow in what they are trying to focus on. And so even in that narrow focus, like I understand you run a bookstore, so maybe you don't have the time to do all these other things. But even in your narrow focus, if you're going to make it a point to publish this report that people kind of hold in a high esteem in the romance community, like they stated in their report, the critique that major outlets and stuff tweet this, or major outlets use this as like a reliable source. If you're going to focus narrowly on one thing, at least be good at that one thing. Have that be on point. Have it be as accurate as possible, because if not, then what's the point? So we know that publishing is racist. We know that there's not a lot of diversity in publishing. And they did say in their follow-up that they have experienced people or met people that are like, what? Publishing isn't racist. There's plenty of stories out there. So sure, I guess this report works for I don't know. I'm no expert. I just feel like it was a weird take from Alyssa Cole no one was critiquing the ripped bodice. They were just like, hi, you're putting out this report. We think it could be better. Here's our take. That's it. So I think what people are saying, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong or if you have a different opinion, that like this is a great starting point. You started this when there really wasn't a conversation or a big nationwide conversation about traditional romance publishing. It's been noticed. People are talking about it. It's been going on for 5 years. Obviously, major outlets look at this information, and some publishers have changed. Is that because of this report, though? And then with the numbers, also like in their critique, saying how many books overall does the publisher publish can affect the percentages. So has it increased as much for some of the publishing houses as it looks like on paper? And also, do they look at these reports? Do they care? Honestly, some of these publishers, I don't think so. They put out their statements last summer because that's what they had to do. That's what the PR team told them they had to do. But you consistently see them act a fool. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm not a pro. I just thought it was a very interesting critique. I think they did a great job pointing out some things that could be better. And so, yeah, let me know your opinions on that. I know that was a lot. There you go. You got your chapstick too. Before we get into another longer story, let's just take a break. So Sarah Janet Maas's book series, ACOTAR, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses, is going to be adapted for TV on Hulu. And there have been varying shades of excitedness, but I saw a lot of people on Instagram who were really excited about it. Then I saw some people on Twitter who were not excited about it. And I think that some people's discourse was they thought Throne of Glass. Where are you going? I just moved my mic to this side to avoid you. Some people were saying that they would have preferred Throne of Glass to be adapted, and some are concerned about Hulu and their ability to pull off, you know, like the needed CGI. Like, is it gonna look good? I mean, there is fairy sex, there's wings, there's sex in midair, and so I don't know how they're gonna do all those things. Obviously, Sarah Janet is gonna get her coins. Good for her. I mean, I'm gonna watch it. I feel like a Netflix or an HBO budget might have been better, but who knows? Hulu's probably got some money, right? Aren't they under Disney or something? Disney owns everything essentially. So yeah, mostly I just saw that discourse about yay or meh. But then apparently there was some people who, you know, because people have been putting out fan cast on who they think should play Feyre, Rhysand, etc., etc. And so someone, I don't know if someone had said this particular actress, who I can't even think of who it is. I'll put a picture. And then people were saying that she was too fat to play Feyre. And they saw that this actress had followed Sarah on Twitter. So then they were like, oh my God, she's been cast. Like, this literally was just announced a few days ago. So I doubt there's a cast. There's not a pilot. I don't think it's even written. I'm not sure, but it was literally just announced. So this girl follows Sarah on Twitter, and apparently they bullied her so much and about like fat phobic comments that she deleted her Twitter. And so I only know this because someone posted it on their stories on Instagram and shared TikToks of people saying that people bullied this girl off of Twitter. And I'm like, that is fucking ridiculous.
I just woke up from a nap because I had a headache this morning, and I just saw this comment, and it's about to start a second headache. Y'all, we haven't known about this project for more than 24 hours. And this is what the result is of it. Y'all are telling me that this woman right here, this woman, too fat to play Feyre. I'm sorry, what? Who in society thinks that she's fat? She's a beautiful woman and should audition for the role of Feyre. And I'm sorry, this book is clearly for anyone over the age of 18 since there's spicy scenes and fairy dick. And if you are out here telling her that she's too fat and having her delete her Twitter, then you don't deserve to read the book. You're a child. You're not an adult woman. I'm actually angry that this is the beginning result of this. Y'all, who cares? Who cares? If she has the acting chops to play Feyre and has the chemistry with Rhysand, I don't care what she looks like. I do not care what she looks like. Y'all, I'm heated. I'm heated. Children should not be ruining this project 24 hours in.
I literally stood up for you Sarah Janet fans the other week because people were trashing the new ACOTAR book and coming after people with death threats, which still is not okay. But then now this week, there's people really out here because someone followed Sarah on Twitter, even if she didn't. Regardless, you should not be, one, I don't understand like attacking and bullying people on the internet in general. I just don't get it. And then too fat to play shut up. This nasty, this harmful, and it's terrible. And if you were one of those people, you should feel ashamed. Go read a goddamn book. I'm tired of it. So messy. Anyway, I'm gonna watch the adaptation. Will I like it? I don't know. I mean, it's still, I don't know how I'm gonna feel about the Shadow and Bone adaptation. I have thoughts from what I've seen. So yeah, don't bully people. Don't be gross. Go read a book, please. Go touch grass. So, as I've stated before, I'm an old lady and I do not have TikTok. So therefore I'm not on Book Talk, but it is a very popular portion of that app. That app is very popular in general. To me, I I don't understand the appeal. Some of them I've seen via Instagram, and some I like when they're informative and they just are like saying something really quickly, but like I hate the dancing and I don't understand it. And maybe it's my age. It hurts. Anywho, there was an article published in the New York Times, and it is titled, "How Crying on TikTok Sells Books." Book talk videos are starting to influence publishers and bestseller lists, and the verklempt readers behind them are just as surprised as everyone else. So the story is starts with talking about We Were Liars by E. Lockhart that came out in 2014, but there's been a resurgence. It hit the bestseller list again last summer, and apparently it's because of TikTok. So people have been sharing books on TikTok, and they get a lot of views, and then people want to go buy them, I guess. And some of them are newer releases. Some of them are books that were released in the last 10 years. So they include in this article We Were Liars. They also talk about The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Also, obviously, there's like The Cruel Prince and, the popular ones that you see. But they said the videos are starting to sell a lot of books, and many of the creators are just as surprised as everyone else. This story talks about two sisters who are 15 and 13 who said I want people to feel what I feel. At school, people didn't really acknowledge books, which is really annoying. So they got on there because they were in lockdown. What else are you going to do? A lot of Barnes and Nobles around the U.S. have started to do like tables, because you know how they'll do like hot now books, but they'll be like Book Talk made me do it or influenced by Book Talk. And so whatever books are popular, they'll have like a table with those. And they said that They Both Die at the End, The Cruel Prince, A Little Life. They said there is no corresponding Instagram or Twitter table, however, because no other social media platform seems to move copies the way TikTok does. These creators are unafraid to be open and emotional about the books that made them cry and sob or scream or become so angry that they throw it across the room, and it becomes this very emotional 45-second video that people immediately connect with. Shannon DeVito, director of books at Barnes & Noble. We haven't seen these types of crazy sales. I mean, tens of thousands of copies a month with other social media formats. So it started out as people who were just reading the books and posting the videos, and then publishers started to be like, oh, let's get into this. So it said now publishers are starting to catch on. So they've been contacting people who have bigger followings to give them free books, usually in advance, to promote them on their TikTok channel so they can get higher sales. And they've also started offering payment. But the most popular videos are about the books that make you cry. If you're crying on camera, your views go up. I literally refuse to watch videos of people crying. Like, I refuse. Like, clickbaity YouTube thumbnails where they're like crying on the thumbnail. I'm like, nope. I just don't, no. This says most of the Book Talk favorites are books that sold well when they were first published, and some of the award winners, like The Song of Achilles, won the Orange Prize for Fiction in 2012. So like, it's not like they're boosting little known books. They're like books that were already popular, they did well when they were released, and now these people are either finding them or they're just making videos about them. So it just makes books that are already successful more successful, which is fine. So this one girl posted a thing of like, this is me starting to read The Song of Achilles, and this is me finishing it, and she was crying. And I guess that has 19 million views on TikTok. So this one who did the video about The Song of Achilles has more than 130,000 followers on TikTok. Publishers send her free books in advance so that she can talk about them on her TikTok or make videos. And she's also paid to create videos. And it said the fees range from a few hundred to a few $1,000s per post. Anyway, I'll link the article down there if you want to read it, but it was very interesting. So then, of course, people were responding, people who blog, who are obviously the OGs, and people who are on Bookstagram. There was conversation around, so we know publishers have the money. I mean, we've always known it, but there's always these articles about like publishing is struggling, and you see all this downsizing, but they have the money. If they could pay people for however long, 15 to 30 second, I don't know how long TikToks can be, hundreds to $1,000 for a post but they don't want to pay anybody else. So the conversation, of course, came up again with book bloggers. A lot of people were feeling frustrated. I even saw some people saying like they're retiring from their book blog. It's just too much work, not people interacting or respecting what they do. I have so much respect for book bloggers because I cannot do it. And so that conversation came up again. I understand how frustrating that is. I could never run a blog, but I feel like in the age where we are now in society with even Twitter, Twitter extended the amount of characters, but like Twitter is popular, obviously TikTok or Reels, like little videos, and stories on Instagram. I'm not even gonna say Instagram posts because that is always all over the place, but people do still like Instagram, but there's people like images and things that are short. So I feel like in this age people are less attracted to reading full out blogs just because of not like people don't. I'm just saying like a majority. I feel like especially Gen Z is very much like, I just want to see something short or read something short and I'll be on my way. So they like these little dramatic fake ass crying videos on TikTok, and that makes them go buy a book, which is great for the author, great for publishing, I guess, and great for them that they're getting paid. But it is frustrating if you've been somebody doing this for so long, either on Instagram or on blogging, and you've asked publishers to pay you for, certain things that you've done to promote work, or if you've done a blog tour or a certain tour on Instagram, a Storygram tour, and you get the book in exchange, but you still have to read the book and write the review, and you're still putting in labor and you don't get paid. And so stuff like that is shady and frustrating because we know publishing's got the money. So if publishing can pay for those videos, publishing can pay for a blog tour, publishing pays the Storygram tour people, and they should be able to pay those people who do the actual Storygram post. That's a different video altogether, but Storygram. So this tweet is from Tracy, who runs the podcast, The Stacks Pod. And she said, good to see publishing is paying some people. Would love to see some reporting on how publishers are refusing to pay Bookstagram creators, especially POC creators, despite the ways they boosted sales all last summer during the racial reckoning and beyond. I have over 50,000 followers, which is one of the largest Black Bookstagram accounts, and a podcast that talks with some of the biggest authors out right now, and yet publishers are unwilling to pay me for my work. They have no budget. So New York Times, let's connect and discuss why publishers do not want to pay, don't have a budget for Black and brown Bookstagrammers, but have thousands for book talk creators. And it's not against people who are on TikTok getting paid, because yes, there's work that goes behind it. Look, I can't make a goddamn reel to save my life. The only ones I ever make are of Nigel because he's just naturally cute and you just put a song and it's cute. So I'm not knocking that at all, not my lane. However, it's evident that you have money, so stop lying. You need to pay people who, regardless, even if it's a blog and maybe that gets less traffic, they're still doing work and promoting authors, and people are still seeing their work. Same with Instagram, same on YouTube, same on TikTok. Like, don't say you can't pay. And maybe it's not thousands because they don't get as many views, but don't say you don't have the budget. Don't do it, because yes, you get exchange for the book. And this is not saying paying for reviews. Do not do that. But I'm saying if it's like, hey, we're sending you this, and we need you to unbox this, and we need you to promote it at this certain time, and we need you to post it, and we want you, like if you're going to ask for all these things, then you need to pay people. It's different if you just send somebody out a book and it's like, oh, I got a free book. Cool. I could read it or I could not. But once you start asking for all this other work, which is promotion for you, then we're like independent marketing contractors, and you need to pay people. It's sad. Obviously there was book bloggers, and then we got Bookstagram, and now TikTok is the new thing. And so it's just, why publishing always gotta lie? It's like, we know what y'all about, but y'all steady lying to our faces like we stupid. I don't like that. Someone tweeted that publishing has moved to relying on Black Bookstagram for book promo without compensation. I saw a flurry of IG stories yesterday of screenshots from emails requesting specific and elaborate posts from influencers. Some get offered the book in exchange, some aren't even offered that. They're fed up about it, glad they're being open about what isn't fair, and also about how much work goes into each post. People mostly do this to have fun. Having requests for how your book should be featured on someone's socials without any benefit to the poster is nuts. Facts. I also think around the same time there was an author who tweeted something to the effects that book bloggers don't need to be paid, and then before I saw it they had deleted the tweets, so this just added into the discourse. But I saw a tweet from Sheila that said to authors, as a book blogger, it's hurtful when you advocate for the exploitation of bloggers' free, thankless work. As a book tour organizer, it's hurtful when you claim that book tours are scams, especially when they're run by bloggers. Sighs and exhaustion. Someone has a screenshot, and this might have been part of the person's tweet, but there's no avi. So it says, you shouldn't pay for being listed on someone's blog, being published by a publisher, for someone to read your query, for someone to become your agent, blog tours, inclusion in a giveaway, mentions on someone's social media. And I guess they wanted to block out the person's name. Someone asked, why not blog tours? Do you know of any free ones? I'm really asking after trying to reach out to bloggers on my own. I know how much work is involved in putting it together. And a response was, I have never seen anyone get real traffic or boost from blog tours. These networks of site copy and paste the same material over and over, which gives zero help for SEO and doesn't boost your book at all. I'd only consider blogs with real meaningful traffic. By all means, look out for free ones. Paying for them will not help you at all. I have seen many sites with zero traffic charging hundreds to copy and paste posts. I think you're better off connecting with reviewers or bloggers that post meaningful content. And the person who tweeted that said, this broad generalization hurts book bloggers who run book tours. Like, where are your sources? And then I also saw this thread by Julie that said, there's a reason a lot of the hit books on Book Talk are older titles, often by white authors. I'm just saying. I did a whole thread on how Book Talk hypes up queer books and tends to ignore books by BIPOC like a week ago. Is that comfortable? She said, it's interesting seeing how Book Talk reacts to videos recommending books by BIPOC versus recommending queer books. I did videos of YA fantasy by people of color, my favorite books by Black authors, and 5 YA books by Latinx authors I love. 190 to 260 views each. The one on Latinx authors was posted in September, the other 2 in February, and she was posting this in March. So when I do videos on queer books, though, my most popular video is adult queer books on my TBR, over 45,000 views. Queer YA books on my TBR has over 5,300. Some of my favorite queer YA nearly has 2,700 views. I posted all 3 of those at the end of January. I said, and then we get to today. I posted a short video with some new queer books I've added to my TBR. It's like 6 books. It has 1,407 views. I posted it 2 hours ago. Some of it could be TikTok's algorithm or the tags I use or the timing of when I posted, because social media is weird like that. But I also have over 1,200 followers, and that number drastically increases when I post about queer books. So they've been presented the other videos. For context, generally when you follow a creator on TikTok, all or most of their old videos show up on your following page, so you can revisit things they made before you discovered them. Maybe I'm reading too much into this. Maybe it's about the platform and algorithm more than the people, but it sure does track with how other bookish social media platforms tend to function. But I saw this tweet because LL McKinney quote tweeted it and said this thread and the one within it shows what a lot of BIPOC mean when we talk about how audiences have been trained by publishing to read certain books in certain voices and styles, which is why books that don't follow those styles end up being reviewed as bad or not as good. Publishing sets this standard, which is why publishing needs to do more, work harder to overcome it, and not just during cultural heritage months or after a community is impacted by tragedy, but all year round, all the time. Let me read that again. And not just during cultural heritage months or after a community is impacted by tragedy, but all year round, all the time. Booksellers and librarians, you can help with this as well, since it needs to be addressed on all sides. When you put together displays and tables, for instance, I know publishers can and do pay for certain things like which books face outwards and which go on front tables, but I'm always curious if and when anyone goes a step further to include books by BIPOC, even when publishers don't put that little bit of extra money behind them, because we all know how it goes with marketing these stories and how they get the short end of that particular stick. Why is a book that's 3 or more years old still on the new YA release table? Stuff like that, but I digress. So what do we learn today, class? Publishing is a mess. Oh my God, I'm losing my voice. I need a cough drop. I've been speaking for way too long recording this video. Let me know your opinions on these topics down below, especially about the ripped bodice discourse. I would love to hear your opinions. Also, I tweeted this and I was kind of kidding, but I'm kind of not, that Okay, obviously we know I love drama and tea as long as it does not involve me, and there's like outside of bookish drama that's been popping and has like been making me cackle, also slightly seethe with rage. And I've been kind of wanting to make those videos too, but I'm like, do I have the time to do that? Like, this is already a lot, but like also I kind of want to do it. I don't know, would you watch it? Don't feel bad if you say no, it's fine. I probably don't need to do that anyway. I need to actually read a damn book. Like I encourage so many people to do. But that's all for today. Nigel and I thank you for watching. If you have watched this whole thing, especially if you watch this in one take, like one go, you are amazing. But don't feel bad if you have to watch it in sections, because as long as hell, I'm long-winded, you know, hey, it is what it is. But we appreciate all of you. Y'all are so amazing. I've been trying to think of a good time and like topic for a next live, or like, do I need a topic? Maybe we just chat. I don't know. Like, I'm like, do I need a topic, or can we just hang out and chill? I don't know. If you have like some particular topic, maybe that would be good for a live. Let me know. I don't know anything at this point. I'm very tired. My throat hurts. I need a cough drop and a sandwich. But please give us a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe. In my description box are going to be links to all of the reports referencing like the ripped bodice and the critiques, any relevant Twitter threads, any other information I can provide, the New York Times article, all of the description, as well as like links to my social media, ways you can support my channel, links to different things that are occurring in the world, and ways you can learn more about them, ways you can help. And I think that's all for me today, because I don't know how much more I can speak. I hope this didn't get too quiet at the end. But again, thank you so much, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye. I had a song planned. To sing to Nigel, but I can't do it. I can't do it justice right now. So, Nigel, do you have any parting words for the people? And tell them anything? Okay. You want them to have a good week? What do they need to do? Wear their mask? Wash their hands. Wash their mask. What else? Drink some water. Put on some lip chat, right? Yes, put on your lip chat. What else? What's most important? Wear your sunscreen. Reapply your sunscreen. Wear it inside your house. Wear it outside. Wear your sunscreen. Okay, anything else? Okay. Toodles.